he was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. I think the case is nonsense. It's a perversion of justice. To make him a convict, a convicted felon. It affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
It's a travesty of justice, a mockery of justice.
Let me be clear about something on the outset. The person you'll be watching today is not the bad guy here. Unwitting whistleblower? Yeah. Nicholas Biasi is the Chief of Public Affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. Something you may be familiar with, and the most prominent federal trial court in America.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And the whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him.
And that's why I like the surging of the bullets. It's a perversion of justice. He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense.
State levels are the Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they?
Alvin Bragg, yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. Before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You do now. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So Alvin's very ambitious. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him.
Mr. Biasi is just saying the quiet part out loud. The part that unfortunately matters. Lawfare? Yes. Why? Because Biasi openly says so. The ones from Alvin Bragg are a particular perversion of justice. How do you know? Because Biasi says so, and he's known him for 15 years. Election interference? At this point, is there any doubt?
Are those even actual felonies? Because I was pretty sure that...
No, he was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him. And that's why I like the surging of the bullets. It's a perversion of justice.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And was that Alvin Bragg's choice to do that? Or why?
Because Alvin's very ambitious.
What do you mean?
He wants to be, something. I don't know what. Mayor. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So this is before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You do now.
What was the point of even doing it then?
To make him a convict.
To make him what?
A convicted felon.
What if he can still run for presidency and...
Yeah, but it affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
I was trying to count the losses. I was like, I wonder how many are against him. I think it's called lawfare.
Yes.
That's what I've gathered from that.
That is what they call it.
So how does this even happen? How can it happen? How can the local and state level courts try President Trump with more ease and less red tape than the federal courts? That doesn't seem right to the uninitiated, but you are the uninitiated. Good thing Biasi isn't.
I mean, at the federal level where I work, there is a 90-day rule where you can't make any decisions on cases that are going to affect an election. That rule does not apply at the state level because the state level is like the Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they? How do they get away with that?
It's a different system. Like the state level and the federal level are like night and day. It's hard to explain, but like there are so many more rules in the federal level, and they're like the threshold for a crime is so much higher. Like I said, the state level is like the Wild West of law. It's like very, for lack of a better term, unregulated. Less checks and balances.
And I know what you're thinking. I thought it too. Well, you're talking about one case or two or 19. Hey, if it's local, you break the rules. You pay the piper, or even if you don't, if you're President Trump, pay the piper. But there are other cases in the country. There are a lot of them where there's smoke, there's fire, right? What about the Georgia electoral interference case, right? That Donald Trump is currently having to face under Fani Willis, right? The Fulton County District Attorney who was caught having an affair with the special prosecutor Nathan Wade.
So is that the strategy against Trump? Just hit him with all the legal battles all across, like the
100%.
Fani Willis, Georgia stuff. What do you think about that case?
It's a travesty of justice. To put it mildly, it's a mockery of justice. She is a joke. Like her and her boyfriend she was seeing, the whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him.
I guess at this point, the only argument left is why should you trust anything Biasi has to say? Let me make the case. Biasi is an expert. He has firsthand knowledge and experience. And despite how the media is going to try and spin this, he is kind of an authoritative voice as the chief of public affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. This man knows the players, he knows the game, and he knows that it is rigged.
Who's that? Alvin
Bragg, yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. So here's us, here's Alvin, he's county level, and he decided to do the case.
Yeah.
And Michael Cohen was their star witness who we prosecuted.
Okay.
You know who he is? That guy's psycho. He calls me. And he records
what does he want with you?
He's like, he's got this thick New York accent. He's like, is this Nicholas Biasi, the chief of public affairs? And I'm like, yeah, this is me. He's like, this is Michael Cohen. Why won't you guys, vacate my conviction? And I'm like, I can't really, I'm not authorized to speak to victims or defendants. Which I thought was a pretty good answer, not knowing who was calling. And he was like, well, who can he speak to? And I was like, the media. And he goes, I have one of the biggest podcasts in New York. But I kind of didn't believe him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're still a defendant, and that precludes me from talking to you.
Of course. I've known Alvin for 15 years.
Like, how well do you know him?
I used to work with him for 10 years.
You guys had dinner together and hung out?
No, we weren't best friends.
Okay.
But I mean, like, if I see him, we know each other really well, but like, do I respect what he's doing? No. Is he a nice guy?
What about like the other people you work with? Do they know it's all a political perversion?
Yeah. Of course.
Well, Trump stuff?
Yeah.
Well, we deferred on all this stuff.
What do you mean?
We investigated decided that, for one thing, there is precedent that you can't indict a sitting president.
You cannot.
You cannot.
Okay.
There is an Office of Legal Affairs rule that you cannot indict a sitting president. It's just too disruptive to the country. So we didn't, but the DA did.
Again, it's important to remember that Biasi is not the bad guy here. I know you're probably mad. Lawfare is a thing. And it's not only happened to Donald Trump, it's happened to many of you watching or listening right now. Some of you don't even know it yet. You don't live in a free country simply because you have laws. You only live in a free country if the laws are applied equally. Otherwise, the law is not a tool to protect a free people. It's used as a weapon to bludgeon the people who perhaps think wrongly. What is the media going to say here? And it's a good thing that this is part of an ongoing series every single week between now and election night, November 2024. This is Mug Club Undercover, The Stealing of a Nation. There's more to come. But I still expect them to play the same cards. This person's not authoritative. He is. He's speaking out of turn. He's not. He has no first-hand knowledge. He does. This is selectively edited. If you join and go to louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, you can see it unedited. There's no smoking gun there. It's just boring. You want to watch them order drinks? Some of them are awful drinks. That's the most offensive part in all of this, but it's not my job to comment on that. We've been working behind the scenes tirelessly and have been shocked at what we have found. And we'll be showing it all to you every single week between now and November 5th, 2024, the election live stream of the century. And that night, wouldn't it be nice if on that night you didn't see the same tactics that you now know have been going on for the years leading up to it? I fully expect the media to attack the messenger. And if that does happen, well, join Mug Club. This is all the culmination of months of tireless work here from the Mug Club Undercover Unit.
Before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You know. It's a travesty of justice. It's horrible. It's a mockery of justice. The whole thing is disgusting.
Tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, because that's what we do every day. There you go. Glad to be with you. Of course, right now we are not on YouTube. We are exclusively on Rumble, and with good reason. And we will be taking some more chat later on Mug Club. For those of you who join up, we appreciate it. This is all funded by viewers like you. Please do share it far and wide. It's available on X. It's available even on YouTube. I would love to stick it to them there and make sure that it gets through their algorithm. There's a lot to unpack here, and there will be more to unpack as we continue moving forward. So here to take your chats, we have, of course, Captain Morgan, CEO. Number two, of course, we have Josh Firestein. But long-time lawyer mine. He hasn't been on the show in a while because he works behind the scenes. But my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, who also has a podcast now, Hardly Legal.
Yeah, that's right. Hardly Legal.
You got out of the Barely Legal and because he was worried about the name, but he included the word hard.
Well, you got to get a little bit of something out there for the people, but glad to be back.
We're glad to have you because obviously it helps when, I'm not a lawyer, you're a lawyer, to speak on this here. A couple of things that stood out to me, and let me be really clear about a couple of things here. I know what the media will say, well, actually this person is probably more of a Republican sympathizer, a Donald Trump sympathizer, so it doesn't really matter. No. What does matter here is someone with firsthand knowledge who understands the inner workings of the system. And it's really this simple, okay? Decide to prosecute. Make Donald Trump a felon. The American public is hesitant to vote for a criminal. So you have a Democrat machine. It says, let's make Donald Trump a criminal. Now let's run a campaign Kamala Harris, the prosecutor, versus the criminal. This is not about the person. It's not about just this case. It's about the fact Donald Trump is not a criminal. The American public needs to know that. That changes the election. That changes the entire fabric of our country and what people believe. If you can manipulate the public into believing that someone is a criminal through what is effectively, one could argue, basically sheer legal fabrication, that's stealing a nation, in my opinion. That's election interference. You can comment if you agree or disagree. If you can suppress stories, as Mark Zuckerberg admitted on Meta, back then I think it was just known as Facebook. I don't know if it was Meta yet. Hunter Biden laptop, COVID, lab leak theory. If you can suppress it, if you can remove voices, it doesn't matter what you do with the, we're not talking about voting machines. That's election interference. Add it all up. You think that has a difference? You think that has an impact that could make a difference of 2%, 3%, 4%, 1%? Maybe just 10,000 people in a state? Let's make this man a criminal and let's run a campaign. Prosecutor versus a criminal. He's not a criminal. That's what this is about. And half-Asian lawyer Bill, what stands out to you here as someone who knows the law quite well? I would hope, because he represents me.
No kidding. So I think it's important context to remember that the Southern District of New York is part of the federal system. So they're part of the Department of Justice. So this is a spokesperson for the federal government's Department of Justice, who is the federal counterpart to what Alvin Bragg's office is in New York County as a district attorney. So if you notice, Biase has worked directly with Alvin Bragg, but they both work in the same jurisdiction, just one at the federal level, one at the state. And he made a couple of very astute comments about how it tends to be that at the state court, it's more of a Wild West. There's different rules that are really ignorant of the larger process that the federal government actually sometimes follows. And so I think the really interesting part here is you have an insider who knows the system, who understands the legal system, making a comment about what I think we were all wondering or thinking was the case, that this seems like a mishmash of just trying to go after someone. And he really put it well into words. Perversion of justice is exactly the problem that we see here.
Yeah. Perversion of justice, a mockery. To me, just really, when he decided to prosecute, to make him a felon, think of the power that some officials have. And that can be done to anyone. That can be done to anyone. People put a target on your back, they're going to make you a felon.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the really chilling part, Bill, is that, like you said, this isn't, if it was the other way around specific to this case, yes, having somebody at the state level talking about Alvin Bragg's charges, still relevant, but somebody at the highest levels. Like this person has risen to some of the highest levels, and talking about it and using words like nonsense, stacking charges to make it fit a case. Every real estate developer in New York has done what Donald Trump has done and not been charged. He's trying to make a name for himself. He's like all of these things. It's like the whole message here is we have to speak up. Like this is the stealing of a nation.
Yeah.
Like this is they're trying to put Donald Trump in jail to keep him from being president. Like, do you understand, like, the banana republic well,
I would go even further.
It's insane.
It's not even about putting him in jail. It's making sure that the public believes, hey, we don't want to vote for a criminal. How often do you hear? We're going to run this on social, just clip after a montage of, you're talking about a convicted criminal. Donald Trump's a criminal, which, by the way, is also not true.
They're calling him a felon.
They're calling him a convicted felon.
Yeah.
They've already decided. It's a choose your own path book, only it always leads to the same path. Convicted felon, and he has to lose the election. Just think about that. As an American citizen, do you live in a free country where that's the case? And what about when that's turned on you? Hey, what about when that kind of lawfare is turned on you and you have potentially an administration who wants to do away with the First Amendment? You don't have the right to hate speak on the Twitter, said Tim Walz. He said it from a stable.
His mouth was full, but he said it regardless.
And same thing. Second Amendment, mandatory gun buyback. Well, now you could be an enemy of the state. It can make you a felon. It's about turning law-abiding citizens into criminals, and unfortunately for the Democrats, turning criminals into a voting base. And it is scary. It's terrifying. And it's even more terrifying when you know what else we have in the pipeline here in the next few weeks. It's not a one-off.
The phrase you used, lawfare, actually, is a really good description of this, not only because it shows the weaponization of the legal system to go after something that no one has ever been gone after before, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first key when you know that this has become a political witch hunt, is when something that everyone does suddenly becomes a problem. And that's every real estate developer, owner, whatnot in New York City is doing this exact same thing, and none of them have a problem. And in fact, lawfare was the title of a memo that came out in July from the Senate Judiciary Committee criticizing how this is being handled. It's usurping from a state prosecutor rules and laws that, if anything, could be done at the federal level. And notice how Biase said, he said, well, no, we're not going to prosecute these things if they're going to be within a certain time frame or whatnot, because we don't want to impact the election and change the outcome for the nation.
Right.
And yet Alvin Bragg is not limited to that, because the only person that can enforce the rule of saying, hey, you're not allowed to do this, Bragg, this is a federal government issue only, this is an election issue, this is a election commission issue, is the Biden administration.
Right.
They're the ones that could come in and say, you're not allowed to do this. This is not your jurisdiction. You're violating the rules. It's a federal election issue. We need to deal with it there, if they're going to deal with it at all, right?
Yeah.
And so that when you start think about stacking charges, we're stacking the allegations of showing the holes in how Alvin Bragg has prosecuted this in bad faith.
Yeah. That's a good point.
He's the villain, right? We're talking about villains. Like, my heart
Alvin
actually
Bragg
goes out to Biase.
I think he's a very decent man.
Probably a decent guy. Like, the big thing for me is he's like, everybody knows this. You guys have to speak up. I'm sorry. Like, that is the line for me. But really,
you can't help in the court of law, but allow a man to be crucified in the court of public opinion, because that affects how people vote. Can I really quickly, before you continue, right now on CNN, what are they doing right now? Nothing up our sleeve. It is 10:31 Eastern. Now, first Trump election interference hearing since immunity ruling. They are talking about this. They are talking about the lawfare, but they're cheering it on.
Yeah.
They are cheering on as they tell you to preserve democracy, that Donald Trump is a great threat to democracy. Let's see what they're saying on CNN, because hopefully now some of America will see it in a different light.
I thought it would be the opposite. Right. And the complaint that they made earlier, we talked earlier about grand jury transcripts, right? The prosecutors have said, well, we would like to submit grand jury transcripts and attach them to our briefs.
And it says, Lauro says they were not suggesting the case should go into the fall of next year, but that the issues at hand need to be dealt with carefully.
Right. So he wants a slow down here. He wants a hearing, but certainly not before the election. But what Trump's team is saying,
right, and that's see what they do right there. He doesn't want it before the election because he doesn't want to face the music. No, hold on a second. Let's look at this through the prism of what we just saw. Mm-hmm. He knows that it's lawfare. He knows that you are trying to have this dog and pony show before the election, because it doesn't matter what the outcome is. What matters is that it's at the front of people's mind. And if the media continually assumes, right, declares Donald Trump guilty before he's even gone through it, guess what? That affects the public opinion. That affects the vote. There are two congruent tracks. They're parallel. There's the court of law, but there's the court of public opinion. And in an election, that matters. If, let's say, this were to happen before the election, this is, I believe, the Georgia interference case. Again, I'm looking at a monitor here in my office. Whatever it is, he's not guilty. All right, but you have spent 2, 3, 4 weeks covering nothing but that, with the tone of this man is a convicted felon. The words, by the way, that people in this administration have used. That's a drip. That's a drip. That's a drip. It's a Chinese water torture of propaganda. Sorry, half Asian Bill, but you know, understand.
Hey, don't erase us. We created it. We love it. I don't like how it's being used, but you gotta take the track record when you can.
No, absolutely right.
Fireworks, spaghetti.
People pervert the good and use it for evil, like the Chinese water torture.
Mm-hmm. We used it for good.
We used it for good. So along with bamboo wood chips up the thumbs. We would do it virtuous.
Look, as long as it's just being done in an iPhone factory, it's fine.
We're going to get letters. But you're the lawyer, so it's okay. People are hearing this drip, 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 drip. Guess what? They're going to go, well, there's smoke, there's fire. Well, he must have done, even if he's not, he must have done something wrong. I hear everybody saying that this guy is a criminal, that this guy is corrupt. That is the goal. And that's why they want to have this in the press, in the media, nonstop going into the election. And boy, if you watch their coverage of the debate, if you watch their coverage of the town halls, and you've been with us here, you see that you have a panel on CNN, a cavalcade of leftist activists who will say, well, you know what, this is the election of the prosecutor versus the criminal. And Kamala Harris has dealt with criminals like Donald Trump. No, she dealt with people who had minor drug offenses and kept them past their sentences to use them as glorified slave labor in the state of California, but that's neither here nor there. This is not a dynamic of a prosecutor and a criminal.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic of a climber and someone who is being crucified on, from what we see, seemingly baseless grounds from the authoritative voices. Sorry, Gerald, you're floor. I cut you off.
No. I think it's fine. And by the way, that's the Jack Smith case. That's the federal case, not the Georgia Fannie Willis case.
Okay,
so that's what they're talking about. The new charges that he filed, essentially, basically going, all right, the immunity ruling. I'll take out everything that I think may be related to that immunity ruling and see if I can still get some charges through.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is crazy example of lawfare happening live when it shouldn't even be brought. And so you want to know who the villains are in this case? We've already talked about Nicholas, right? Biasi. Mm-hmm. Heart goes out to the guy. I understand that he's in a very tough position, but he's in a position where he and his colleagues have to start speaking up. Everybody around, if you're in this, you have to start speaking up.
Yeah.
The villain here, Jack Smith, very easy to look at him and paint him as a villain, somebody who's out to get Donald Trump. And in this specific case, Alvin Bragg, who's only limited by his ambition, right? He can go and just bring charges.
Yeah.
And put a case together that doesn't really make sense for anybody else except if you're trying to just take out Donald Trump and make people not vote for him.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that's limiting, and that is terrifying.
And the greatest villain, of course, is the media and big tech industrial
they're going to carry his
complex.
water.
Take this and just apply what we know exactly about the Hunter Biden laptop. Media, big tech, and he came out and said, this is not true, censored it, removed it, because the FBI told them it was Russian disinformation when they knew that it wasn't. Now, we don't have all the proof of every charge here now, but is it a stretch to say that that could be going on? Is it a stretch to say that people in positions of power who know that these are basically trumped up, forgive the term, charges, is it a stretch to say they could be calling people at CNN, they could be calling Meta, Zuckerberg, big tech, the people who we know they've called in the past to do their bidding? How do you cut through that? That's what we're trying to do here today, and we need your support. If you want to see more of this investigative journalism, along with, by the way, this show every day, we'll be doing one tomorrow because I'm sure there will be more questions regarding this. Click that button right below if you're watching on Rumble, louderwithcredit.com/mugclub. I believe we have a promo code
LAWFARE for $20 off right now.
LAWFARE for $20 off. None of this happens without you. Do we want to take some chats?
Yeah, let's take a few chats before we go, and then
all right, we'll go. Hi, Josh.
Hey. This has been exciting.
I was like, Josh, you probably don't need to be here. It's going to be pretty, there's going to be a lot of legalese. And he was like, oh, no, I haven't spent time with Bill yet. The guy's funny as hell.
Well, hey, Josh, have you seen any Montel Williams sightings?
No, he's elusive. He'll be back on nightly newsroom or whatever the hell it is.
Selling a blender or whatever it is. What was it that he was selling at one point?
He's selling a razor that just burns that goatee into your face. Yes. It's so perfectly lined up. He looks like a gay pharaoh.
Yes, he does.
I think it's just a soldering iron. He's just burning the skin.
Yes. Yeah. It's a branding. It's not even a goatee. It's
a
brand.
They moved from doing the eyebrows to the face. It's pretty epic.
It looks like one of those ventriloquist dummies, just as the slits where his mouth can move. And you're like, oh, it's a goatee. Okay, I was confused. Let's grab some chat.
Right. First chat from the Mississippi gentleman. Q for crew, do you guys think the judicial system can be fixed? If not, how do we move forward? If so, how do we help fix it?
Ooh, big question.
That's a good question. What do you think, Bo? As someone who is a lawyer, I think you have, I don't have a ton of faith in the judicial system as a whole, but in individual courts, obviously, I think we have the best system that exists in the world currently. But there are some flaws. Do you think it's in need of fixing, and how could that be done?
Well, I don't want to get too grandiose on the American experiment, but the fact that we have different jurisdictions who can set an example about what it means to prosecute prosecutorial misconduct is a big thing. What's ironic here is that in 2021, New York created a commission specifically to curb prosecutorial misconduct by its state attorneys. So by its prosecutors, Alvin Bragg, et cetera, they created this. And one of the main things that they're going against is bad faith bringing of charges and crimes and accusations. So specifically called out in there is bringing bad faith charges for an unjust reason, such as political gain. Now, you could support Mug Club, or you can count on state politicians to try and regulate other state politicians. So I'm not going to make that decision for you. Just go home, write in your diary, talk it over with your family, your therapist, and then get Mug Club. But The thing here is that in other states it has worked to put the kind of pressure on to shine the light. Shining the light like Mud Club Undercover has done here is such a big part, because what it says is that other insiders inside the court, people who know how prosecutorial misconduct can occur, are seeing it and saying it. Now, not publicly without Mud Club, but it's now coming to light how bad this is. So being in the judicial system every day, I would say there's a lot of people who want to do well, some who are incapable because they're just not that good at it, and that is what it is. But most individuals are trying to stick by the American ideals, but we have a few at the top who can steer the ship in the wrong way. And I would be very, very curious if there was a secret poll of assistant district attorneys who would go, guys, there's murderers in New York. There's criminals in New York. There's sovereign nations hoarding their wealth here and hiding it from people and not paying their victims. And we're going after guy with the documents doing everything that every other real estate guy does in New York.
Yeah.
And so I think your point, Stephen, of speaking up is most important. How that speaking up will change things, not sure, but it all starts with speaking up.
Yeah, it certainly helps with public perception, because a lot of people don't have time to educate themselves or inform themselves on all of these issues. And you think, well, maybe there's something wrong with the judicial system. I don't exactly know. Hopefully this helps clarify it. Also in New York, I think the example you're looking for is people pooping in the streets. There are still people pooping in the streets in New York.
They're a distant second from San Francisco.
That's
true. You got to give the gold medal where it's deserved.
If you don't have an app, the Poop Spotter app that they had in San Francisco, by the way, you really haven't made it yet.
It'd be pretty tough in New York. When I lived in New York, every time I would walk out of the house, I smell shit.
Yes.
It was always, that's right, Toolman, it's like, it smells like human feces.
Yes.
You just get used to it.
And hot garbage.
And then people tell you, it's the most beautiful city in the world. Have you been to Central Park? I'm like, oh, you mean like every park that exists everywhere else in the world, but it's the only green space you have here, so you're impressed with it?
It's just surrounded by awful things.
Smells like shit, urine, and falafel all together.
Yes.
No, occasionally you get the dead body smell.
You do.
Right?
That's nice. That's nice.
You mix it up here.
Yeah, exactly.
A little palate cleanse.
Yeah, you just have a sandalwood cloth over your nose, and you're none the wiser. Let's grab another chat.
Hey, by the way, Facebook is not allowing any of our users to share the Rumble link. I just wanted to bring that up.
All right,
Thank
so
you,
then
Facebook.
On Facebook, maybe we can, let's see if we upload it directly to Facebook, which I'm sure they'll remove. You can share the YouTube link. It's still up there, and of course it's available on X, or you can share the article. You can go to loudwithcredit.com, and there's an article, and it has the thumbnail, so people can click on the article and go watch the video. So we've planned for some workarounds, but boy, they move quickly.
They do.
Hey, Zuckerberg, what happened to that apology? Douche. Next chat.
Next chat from the one and only J-Man. Question. Now that the gloves are off from the left with lawfare and other dirty tactics, is it best to take the high road and do it right, or fight fire with fire?
Ooh.
Here's what I will say. I don't believe in fighting fire with fire as far as you never want to abandon or compromise your actual values or morals. But the idea of being merciful always, I wouldn't say is a value that you should necessarily be holding. It's not the same as, for example, don't lie. That's an important value. It's not the same, for example, as, don't kill, don't steal, don't poop in the streets, don't mislead. But I know this because I'm very reticent with a lot of these not only these stories, but in general, I try to match intensity. I try not to go after anyone, and that's why we don't, we don't bully anybody, of course, on Twitter, anyone with an egg, and go out and try and attack people. You always try and punch up. But I do think at this point in time, you do need to match the intensity. So as long as you're being truthful, I would say don't hold back, because the left is not holding back, and they are being dishonest. You cannot fight that by sitting in your ivory tower.
Yeah.
You got to fight back, at least with some intensity.
Well, staying silent is the biggest problem here. I mean, the options aren't do nothing or fight fire with fire. It's let's put the fire out, right? Let's go to the source of the smoke and the flames and put it out with shining a light on how this is happening. And every person who can do this, I know that there are Mud Club subscribers here who are privy to opinions and information that would blow the lid on this kind of thing. And, being able to talk about that and shine the light on these bad motives, on this bad faith, makes the pressure mount on those institutions, whether it's the federal government, whether it's this Commission on Prosecutorial Misconduct, or even just simply the voters. Because remember, Alvin Bragg, he was elected. So when you think about the way people look at it and they want to stay away from people who have been labeled as a criminal, well, we know who's engaged in the wrongful conduct here, the elected official heading the New York District Attorney's Office.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, just think of what's happening in Aurora, Colorado, perhaps Chicago now. We haven't confirmed that. But Donald Trump's talked about Venezuelan gangs or gangs coming from South America, some of them being released from asylums. The media said that's not true. Fact check, false. If someone living in or around these apartment complexes, for example, didn't get that footage out there, you wouldn't know. It would just be Donald Trump's a liar. He's telling tall tales.
Right,
now you know that he's not. We don't know to the extent that this is taking place, and that's where you can do your part and shine a light on it. And guess what? If that happens, there's a cumulative effect where people go, yeah, but you said he was lying about the migrant gangs. Yeah, but hold on a second. You said that he committed a crime when Mar-a-Lago, it was valued at it was more than 18 million, which is what the judge said. Yeah, hold on a second. But you said it was a crime when he did something that every real estate agent did. Well, hold on a second. Yeah, but you said it was a crime and you extended the statute of limitations. Well, hold on a second. You said that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation. The more you shine a light on it, I mean, we are at an inflection point in this country. And this is why the left is so adamant about you trusting your institutions. When they say Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, the people, by the way, whose candidate has never received a vote for this position right now, what they really mean to say is he's a threat to institutions. And right now they are telling you, we need to have trust in our institutions in the United States of America, or it'll be chaos. By the way, pack the Supreme Court. What they mean is it's stranglehold. Trust the educational institution. Trust the institution of media. Trust the institutions of intelligence agencies. Trust them, because you don't. And in a lot of cases, rightfully, you don't. And hopefully people can know where their righteous anger can be directed as far as losing that trust. The Democrats right now, the left, they are dead set on telling you that anyone who threatens institutions in America, these institutions that I've laid out, they are a threat to democracy. This is the same party that said, by any means necessary, we'll get Trump.
Yeah.
Through what? Using the institutions.
Right. And I think one of the things that we need to see happen is there be consequences for this kind of behavior, right? So Alvin Bragg can do these kinds of things because A, he knows the media is going to carry his water. B, he's not afraid of the voters because they want to get Trump in his district, right? Until enough people speak up and say, hey, maybe we don't all want to get Trump. Maybe we just want the law to be enforced equally. He knows his colleagues in the judicial system are not going to call him out, and there will be no repercussions for this. Probably a promotion at some point later on if he ends up being the guy that got Donald Trump. You know he's going to run on that, right? Mm-hmm. But what happened when Kevin O'Leary came out and said every real estate developer in New York right now did what Donald Trump is doing? He came out from a position of expertise in that community. And a lot of people go, oh, okay, this isn't a talking head saying this. This is Kevin O'Leary. You might like the guy, you may not like the guy. But this guy's a great businessman, and he's coming out and saying this. And other businessmen started saying that. Mm-hmm. That breaks that kind of silence people have. And I honestly think that's what we need way, way more of in these institutions specifically, because people are sitting there, they know it's BS. Yeah. They know it's absolute crap, and there's going to be no accountability, and he's just going to run for another office because DA is not what he wants to be.
Well, what is it that they said yesterday? They were talking about, I believe it was Pennsylvania, maybe it was Michigan, that only 15% of voters right now have said that maybe my mind can be changed. Take that 15%. Right now, let's call it a dead heat in Pennsylvania or Michigan. How many people do you think can be swayed if they realize that there's a legal witch hunt going on and they have been lied to systematically for 4 years? Do you think that more of that 15% goes one way at that point? A lot of these people are looking for a reason. You can be the one who tips them over that edge. You can be the one who opens their eyes. There is a small percentage of Americans who have deliberately put blinders on, and there are some who have had, unfortunately, blinders put on for them by the media, the entertainment industry. And if you're going to take here's the thing, if you're going to take a position in this country by default, meaning if you are not actively engaged politically on a day-to-day basis, you will be a liberal. Even if the Democrat Party shares none of your values. Why? Everything you watch, ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, MSNBC, CNBC, tells you should be left. All of Hollywood. Netflix, go to Amazon Prime, shows on Hulu, take your pick, music, the artists you listen to. Unless you proactively seek information out, by default, you'll go, oh, well, yeah, Donald Trump's a criminal and he's a bad guy and he tried to lead an insurrection. Why? Because everything that you watch, you hear, you absorb tells you to think that way. those people, their minds can be changed if that information finds its way right in front of them. And you know what? That's why the algorithms make sure that it doesn't. So it's on you. This is your responsibility. All of ours right now. We're doing what we can. I know that many of you don't have the same kind of a platform. So, hey, you can help support us, but you do have a platform with your family, with your community, with your friends. Have these conversations. You will be shocked to find out how many people go, isn't Donald Trump a criminal? And you say, well, hold on a second. What did he do? I'll say, I don't know. I heard it. You give them a few facts and they go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. There are a lot of people who take a default position because of what they've been told who are receptive to, if it's a convincing argument. So I know we're going to go to Mug Club and take more chats, I believe.
Yeah.
With, of course, my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, Hardly Legal. Where can people download the podcast there, Bill?
So right now we're on YouTube, but we're getting ready to move on to the other podcast platforms. But the format is basically Love Line with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, but for legal issues. So people call in anonymously. Hardly Legal is the show. We're taking calls. We do calls every Friday, and we record them. We help folks. We get them connected with legal services, give them a little clarity, have some laughs along the way, but do that with a fellow comedian of mine, buddy, who's also an attorney. And so, having a lot of fun doing it. But, I want to echo the message that you were talking about. You told me very early on when we met, years and years and years ago, that if you take any quote and you go backwards 30 seconds and you go forward 30 seconds, you're going to understand the real context. And I think you have to apply that to everything you're told in the media about what Trump is or what he's done. Because when you look at just an isolated thing, you might go, oh, okay, this looks like a violation of the elements of the law. But if you take a larger back and forth, you're going to realize, oh, wait a minute, every real estate developer in the country's done it. The government has never prosecuted this before. The person who stands to gain the most politically will be the guy who gets to trumpet that he put Trump under the microscope of the legal system, Alvin Bragg. And so I think that context is important. And if there's anything we've learned after story after story after story for the last 8 years, is that when you smell something funny about the story, whether it's a dossier, whether it's anything that's coming out, and you go, I don't know, man, that seems a little skeptical, and every one of them has been proven to be wrong.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. Do the research. Think to yourself, nah, I think I'm going to do my own investigation to figure out what's happening. And Mug Club is what makes that happen. I mean, without these facts, you really wouldn't have the context, which is why it's critical.
Yeah, and we really appreciate it. And this is a lead up, by the way, before we go to Mug Club chat. Thank you to all the new members. Lead up to the election live stream of the century, the Rumble on Rumble, November 5th, 2024. We hope that these kinds of shenanigans aren't continuing to take place. This is the lead up, but the night of, we will have investigative journalists in every major city of every major swing state across the country. We will have the wires as well as third-party analysts so that we can actually dispute states if they're called with 0.00012% of the vote in like Arizona. Of course, that's a gross exaggeration, but you understand my point. We will also have the electoral integrity map where you can go and see states being called. And if something happens that night, I don't know, like a pipe bursting in Georgia that we lived in real time, but then the next day they said it didn't happen. We were like, wait, hold on a second. Did we dream that? We streamed for like 12 hours. I thought we saw that happen. You will be able to click that box, open it up, and see the current investigative journalists and ground crew taking action and digging into it in real time. None of this happens in darkness. We have some infrastructure and researchers here and the ability to not just sit and be bystanders and experience it with you, but to actually be at the front, to actually be the leaders here, to actually be that pace car where people, if they're looking to call states, if they're looking to actually provide you with up-to-the-minute information in the election, we have created something here that I'm very proud of, and this is all a lead up to that. And part of this is we were getting ready for the election live stream, and then some of these stories fell into Mug Club Undercover's lap. So we will continue with chat right now, and I believe there's a live show, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, even here on Rumble and YouTube. Usually it's Mug Club exclusive, but hopefully you understand this is too important to not include everybody, including the freeloaders. Let's go to chat.